You're back on Biashara Tuesday. Welcome to the show. Thank you for keeping it here. And if you're joining us for the first time, tell us who told you to watch the show, and also how did you find it if no one told you. But what do you expect from us here? We'd love to hear on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. We're streaming live on all those platforms. Olela Tony saying, well done to Alan Kucha, who's just come off air there talking about mental health issues, an advocate of mental health. We're trying to keep our heads calm and below the water as all the trouble goes on around us. So asante sana Olela Tony for tuning in, saying that this is a light, or Alan Kucha is a light to so many young people. The power is in you, own it and claim your space. Watching you live, regards of my guy Okenye and Bonnie. Avush Banadi, Lord, again, watching the show Tuesday. Biashara is lit. Asante sana for creating time. A very big fan of Biashara Tuesday. Never misses most of the time. On Twitter, I see Ano Dida, ameamka, checking out our tweets as well. I'll be looking at more of what your feedback has to say. But in the meantime, it is 8:34 in the morning here on studio, and we are taking a look at the developments that are there in your world in terms of what has been detailed here in the dailies. I have with me the Daily Nation, the Standard, the Business Daily as well, and Jesse has a copy of all of this that I've mentioned. So if you can get yourself one as well, please get it. And also, kama wewe ni Ojwang Mariam and someone else ambaye anaangalia show and have access to the People, Daily, the Star, and all of that, please tuambie headlines zinakaje huko as we compare. I think we're going to get a reaction from Jesse on what he thinks about the headlines, but I think I wanted to introduce with this opinion piece in the middle of the Daily Nation from one Macharia Gaitho. He says that President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga each had a choice between wisdom and foolishness. And fortunately for us both, they took the right option. Jesse, I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself first and then get your initial reaction on that. Did they choose between foolishness and wisdom? Do you think they chose wisdom?
Yeah. Hi, Richard. I think it's good to see you. It's good to be here today.
Yeah.
I think we have very good news on the papers today. Everyone's focusing on these recent rules. It was cleared on Sunday night. Yeah. As late as Sunday night, many people were very unsure about what was going to happen the next day. Right. Yeah, so businesses are open. A lot of businesses actually they opened towards the later part of Monday. And so most of the papers today in the Nation and the Standard, everyone is talking about the Ruto-Raila deal. And there are a lot of angles that people are choosing to take at. But a lot of the opinions that we are getting from these pieces, especially in the Standard, is that people want what we call the hardliners, especially in President Ruto's camp, to quiet down, to simmer down, and see what see what outcomes these initial talks and dialogues will have. Yeah. So
far, you're calling it wisdom? The route that the two have taken?
I think it is necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, it is necessary. It has proven to be a very important part of this kind of bipartisan leadership that we have here in Kenya. And I think going as far back even as the last 3 elections, Raila had a handshake with Kibaki, President Kibaki back in 2007. And then Raila having a handshake with President Kenyatta, in 2013. And now we have Ruto's time has come.
Everyone gets their turn.
Yeah,
Raila Odinga. Okay, the Standard calls it hope after demo deal. Maybe to put it in context, after incessant pressure, both locally and internationally, President William Ruto and Azimio leader Raila Odinga climbed down from their positions and agreed to dialogue, a move that has been received with jubilation across the country, with traders, church leaders, and politicians hoping for long-lasting solutions. The Daily Nation calls it search for Ruto-Raila deal starts. President William Ruto on Sunday extended an olive branch to Azimio leader Raila Odinga, who called off the protest. And this is a day after, of course, Raila Odinga called off those anti-government protests in response to the offer for consensus in the recruitment of poll commissioners. There's a word being thrown around, ad hoc.
Ad hoc.
They are creating an ad hoc committee, which is a committee created during for necessary scenarios. I think that's the translation to English. So for this particular scenario, the ad hoc committee to find or to search for that Ruto-Raila deal. Is it a Ruto-Raila deal, or is it a deal between Ruto and Raila on behalf of Kenyans?
Sure. So first things first, I must say, on this particular topic, if you're really interested, you must get the Standard. They have a very, because this is the newspaper review, right? They have almost 10 pages dedicated to the Ruto-Raila deal.
Okay.
So they have on page 7, what they say, is the plan that, the Ruto camp have. And essentially what they're doing is, number one, they're claiming that Ruto met, especially yesterday, a lot of his premiers. So we're looking at the National Assembly Majority Leader, Kimani Ichung'wah, someone who, I think for the sake of this conversation, you can identify as a hardliner.
Yeah, true.
And another hardliner, is Aaron Cheriot, that's the Senate Majority Leader. And then, of course, the chief hardliner, I think I would say, is the Deputy President himself, Rigathi Gachagua.
Who definitely has to be involved in this conversation.
Very vocal, on social media, and also in person. We have several clips, of him speaking about, issues regarding, the Raila Ruto deal. So what we have is, we are seeing both camps kind of getting ready, I think, to make concessions. However, as an expression of opinion, I think, there is a lot of fear, and probably what might happen is that, Ruto and Raila will definitely have to be the one calling the shots, and on both camps, so especially on Ruto camps, the people who had defected earlier, not defected, but the people who had allied themselves, the likes of Musalia Mudavadi, the Prime CS. They're very worried about their positions because, now they have the presidents here, but with, these new powers of, the opposition bringing in, there's a lot of, where do you go?
Where do we go now?
Who now has, the say? So,
right. Because eventually when, as you saw with Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, when it gets to that point, that deal between the two principals takes precedence over whatever else is happening in the political
peace first.
Right, yeah, true.
So
Ichung'wah says, the National Assembly Majority Leader said that they are yet to agree on the number of ad hoc committee members and whether they need experts as proposed by Azimio. So I think even at the onset, we are going to see the friction that exists there. I don't think this has put away the friction that exists between Azimio and the government, because even including the selection on who goes into the committee and why they go to the committee is going to be quite a bone of contention. Do you think they should go with experts as Azimio had proposed?
I think each side will, number one, they'll start with the shareholders, people who have something to gain. And something important that Raila noted is this is, there's an exit clause, I think they would call it. If the discussion falls down at this point, he's ready.
Back to the streets.
Yes, and he did say that. One thing that Raila also showed, initially he started his demos on Monday, and then he switched up to 2 days, Mondays and Thursdays, and there's that consistency of so there's a very real backing to what he's trying to say. Whether or not we'll see more commissions, I think on both sides they need to go see, especially amongst the premiers. Again, it's very important because this kind of discussion start at the top and then they trickle down. So the people who have vested the interest, especially in Raila camp, this include Raila, possibly, though we've not, we have seen, that Martha Karua will also play a very big role in terms of this committee. So she's also been identified as one of the
hardliners who have to be put in the dialogue.
Yeah, I would say the key members of the Raila camp. So there are also the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka from the Raila camp, and
But looking back, Jesse, when we saw the handshake, the famous handshake between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, there were people who were essentially left in the cold, yeah? So, we never knew what happened to Kalonzo after that. The friction that exists between Musalia Mudavadi, Wetangula, and Raila Odinga happened mostly around the time of the handshake, where they felt like Raila Odinga had taken his issues to be precedent over what else the whole coalition was fighting for. Are we going to see a situation where, according to here page 4, I see people like Eugene Wamalwa, who might not have that weight going forward in terms of what the principles are going to discuss about. Do you think they're going to be left in the cold? You've said they are hardliners, Martha Karua and whatnot, but is there a chance, the likes of Jeremiah Kioni might not see the fruits of whatever this bipartisan conversation is going to bring?
Sure. So I think that's a very important question you've asked, and I have an answer for you, and it goes something like this. I think there's a proverb says that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it. You're in charge of your own kind of domain, so if you're not already, you don't have enough clout at a local level, then I don't think you're within, you are not going to, you have no basis to fight also at the kind of national level. And a good example of this is I would actually look to the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who in page 10 here of the Standard, right? There's a piece, and then there's Professor Macharia Munene and political analyst Martin Andati, who argue that the Deputy President has taken up the reins. Previously we had Uhuru Kenyatta kind of being the main representative of the Mount Kenya kind of political group. And now we see within this new government, you see the Deputy President actually, very consistently having, kind of being seen as being the main contender or the voice for that kind of group. So you need to see there's this kind of evolution of who sits at the top of there. And I don't think, again, this is why it is the onus is on them. If you've not been doing your homework,
then there's no reward for you.
Exactly. So you cannot project then your own failures onto the part of the larger coalition that you are a part of. So I think we obviously there will be a very disappointment. I think there can be a bit predictable.
There are a couple of people going to shed tears.
Yes. Yeah, but I think the very I would focus more on the router side, especially for the people who are already within these kind of instruments of power. I think those are the bigger losers, are the people who already don't have and not going to have possibly.
Sure thing. Here, Raila is fighting for a couple of irreducible minimums. One of them being the reconstitution of the IEBC. In his opinion, maybe one side gets the position of the chairman, the other gets the deputy. The selection panel is already gazetted and was already gazetted by President William Ruto. So I think there's also a bit of difficulty. The lawyers who are watching the show can tell us maybe how that is going to be handled now that the constitution already gives mandate to a gazetted panel, that no arbitrary process can sort of backtrack what has already been gazetted. So that's going to be quite a difficult way to approach this IEBC reconstitution. But also the other thing being that the cost of living, public interest, that is what Raila Odinga was appealing to the people to join him in the streets. The cost of living is going up. We want unga ishuke. Are we? Are we having a trust deficit? Can we trust that Raila Odinga is going to look at the cost of living? And I saw Kimani Ichung'wah, the Senate majority, the majority parliament, while yesterday giving his remarks there, that of course the cost of living is something the government looks at every single day. It doesn't need to involve friction between the opposition and the government. But in these irreducible minimums, where does your trust lie, as Jesse?
I think it is important. So there, as you said, there are two kind of, Raila Odinga has a multiple pronged approach. So for him, his key issues, of course, we had, I think it was even as late as last week, him publishing this website where he was kind of opening up server information. There's that electoral, what I would say, accountability. I wouldn't say for sure, his claims of, to winning the election being true, but I think the idea of electoral accountability must be addressed going forward in these talks. And we are seeing that, potential, especially again, focus on page 10 and on page 4 of the Daily Nation, they also go quite a bit into it. But on page 10 of the Standard, it really breaks it down for you well, where the possibility of, again, as you said, these IBC commissioners being expanded, so that, again, there's, the idea that the equal opportunity or a space for everyone at this table, keeping in mind that just earlier this year, Ruto had actually gone to ahead and to taken action against some of the IBC commissioners who had kind of come up in support for Raila. So this is we're seeing kind of him really following up, trying to cover his bases. The other claim here that the possible solution space, as possible space for this to work is now being the season where we are moving to the next planting season. So there's also a possibility for that the government might introduce subsidies again for common goods such as maize, just to really show that we are listening to the Kenyans. So if Raila also does enjoy or see much success in terms of his demands being made in that sector, I think the common wananchi will be much happier. Right.
Regardless of any other political outcome.
So I think if he can again make sure that those things demands are met, he can capture. I think a lot of the people who supported him and backed him will be very happy and can continue enjoying that public support.
Right. Great. That's what is happening in regards to that conversation between Ruto and Raila. I think for me, the other big win from the calling off of this demonstration, we're seeing that the international community is also lauding this. We've seen manufacturers, including statements here from Kenya Association of Manufacturers and other key stakeholders in that industry, saying that this is good for business. We had a situation where 2 days of the week no business, especially in the Nairobi CBD, no business plus no school, because I think a majority of schools will hold off their students, expecting that chaos of the protests. So also 400 people injured so far, including a host of journalists and also 3 people shot dead. So it's time that maybe calling off this is also a good way in reducing that kind of damage, including damage to property. We've seen a lot of looting happening there. But still talking of IEBC, maybe just a bit before we move away from that political discussion. There's a book that's coming out from former IEBC chairman, Isaac Hassan, who's revealing how the former CEO, James Oswago, and his personal assistant led a media campaign to cast him as someone who did not have integrity while still held office. The book is out, so if you're interested in reading it, it's called A Referee of a Dirty, Ugly Game, which is a memoir that traces the life and times of that former chairperson of the IEBC. To close it off with IEBC as an independent, constitutionally constructed institution, we've had issues before. We still have issues. It's still a very big conversation. President William Ruto last year in August said that Chebukati was the hero of that election. But we can see that Raila Odinga does not agree. Previously, same thing with former IEBC chairperson Isaac Hassan. Before that, when it was double IEC, I think, with the
Kivuitu, yeah.
Yes, and Raila Odinga has been pushing for that electoral reform. Could IEBC be a very big part of the problem that we are facing in this political tussles?
Yeah, so I think the answer is yes. I think again, electoral accountability has been a very big pain point for democracy in our country. However, I think, especially reading about, Oswago, specifically like leaking this kind of media information, sensitive information to the media, and with the cases we've had of, even compromised, electoral officials, and it's a very good opportunity, again, for Raila and for Ruto to effect change. This we can imagine even without the kind of tense situation we have now, it might be a policy change that might have taken even longer. Maybe. So we are seeing possibly a process that might have taken years has been shortened to maybe even months. So this is a very good. I would say that there's a very good opportunity. Keyword being here, an opportunity. For there to be change effected. And the good thing is especially with elections being held regularly, these pain points can kind of be serviced, so that in this election we address this one particular issue of, for example, free and fair elections. Now that has become less and less of an issue, especially at the kind of you're looking at the the constituent level elections, and so we're seeing more accountability at even lower levels of election, let alone the presidential election. So there will be change. I foresee again a lot of changes to the way the elections will be conducted. But I think again these are two very important points, and I think perhaps even Raila Odinga, we have to say hats off to him for attacking these two specific pain points. So we'll see how it goes. I think this is one of those we'll have to watch and wait, as the whole country tends to see what the first round will offer.
Okay, so you can read about that. I think it's also good that this is a book that's coming out around now about the IEBC misconduct, so that we can have that wholesome conversation and also reflect in the errors that we've made in the past, back in the days of former elections. So on page, I think that's the Daily Nation, there are 3 letters that people love, which is SEX, but there are others they don't like, which is STI. And on page 3, there is a story here on STIs that are resisting current treatment regimen. And I think you said this is an area you want us to take a look at. Examples of STIs are given there. The people who are infected with several of those globally at 82.4 million, and that's just for gonorrhea, and 7.1 million are the adults who are infected with syphilis globally. And that was in 2020 alone, so we don't know about 2021 or last year or this year. What do you have to say about this, Jesse? Watu waogope Nairobi? Or is this something that just the health officials need to have a look at?
I think I guess it cuts both ways. This is again very concerning statistics, especially when it comes to drug, and resistance, meaning there's faster spread, more of this stuff being out there. I think there's also, I've seen on the tabloids and digitally, like there's a lot of focus. I think Kenyans, especially on these lifestyle issues, there's a lot of awareness that has been raised, and hopefully it will be enough to prompt lifestyle changes. But we're also hoping that the healthcare sector will respond. We'll see more sensitization campaigns. We'll see an active effort by the state, by the responsible stakeholders to take care of the population. I think it's not enough to just shame people into a better kind of lifestyle choices. We need also the facilities to take care of them.
You cannot shame people to better lifestyle choices. That's quite a statement there. Put it on a t-shirt somewhere out there. Check it after the show. Moving on from that, there's more of stories on families who are now mourning their loved ones who died after those protests. And now, as this other side, we focus on the talks, the other people who are visiting their loved one in hospitals, and also doing funerals for them, for those who are shot dead. So that's also something you should be thinking about, highlighted here in page 8 of the Standard. There was page 14 of the Standard, if you can have a look at that as well. Sure. The Kenya Space Agency, the military, that is Kenya military with SpaceX, looking to launch Taifa 1 into space on April 10th. Good news?
Very good news. It's being launched in California. It's cheaper to launch a satellite from there. I think also other countries will be launching their satellites, so I think it's one big satellite launching party. The very many stakeholders. I think the information. So number one, it is Kenya's first Kenyan-built spaceship. So
by a team of Kenyan engineers.
And the Kenya Space Agency, led by Hillary Kipkoskei, kind of very excited spearheading this effort. So very many invested groups, the KD. We have officials from the Department of Defense giving the kind of testimonials there on what they expect it to do. So we're expecting enhanced kind of security kind of information being transmitted. We're also kind of hoping to see, better information collected, especially on rainfall patterns, on ground cover. So
agriculture, to try and look at data analysis on weather patterns and all of that, something that's important for food security.
Yeah, so hopefully this also opens Kenya up to the international space. It's a new kind of field for us. So very exciting stuff. Again, backed by Elon Musk's SpaceX. So very, very, very exciting for the Taifa 1, first Kenyan space
observation satellite.
Yes.
They're calling us an Earth observation satellite. So, disaster management, environmental monitoring are the things we are expecting Taifa 1 to do. Interesting choice of name. I think that's a good one. Taifa 1, very synonymous to Kenya Taifa yetu, when Taifa letu. Laban Shaban can tell me how wrong I am with that one, but you never forget your first. So it's a good one. This is a first for Kenya, and we are celebrating the Kenya Space Agency for that. Kenyatta University students actually have been innovating around space. They were doing one called KUTV, which I'm hoping we had a discussion here some time back last year. I'm hoping that development is also faring on well. So our space curiosity is paying off. We might see ourselves also sending a few people to the moon in 2069. Maybe. Interesting editorial cartoon here. I wanted also to see on the Standard. Word on the street is you are vindictive, thin-skinned, and vengeful. So there's a man here writing down freedom of expression. I think addressing a general, looks like a police officer or something, right? Like that. Also, and then how do you interpret this? You're an artist.
Yeah. So this is by Gado.
Yeah.
So we could actually put this out there. I feel like this looks like I don't know if it looks like a president.
State. Oh, it looks like like President Ruto.
Yeah, and
in military regalia there as CIC. And guys who are writing down the freedom of expression are not getting the chance to, so it's up for interpretation.
Yeah, and very interesting that they have a Christian cross as his insignia.
Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe the viewers can
tell us what they think. Yeah, you can check out page 16 of the Standard. I'm curious what the Daily Nation has, but we will.
Yeah, and I think this is actually Gado himself drawing in first person. So him as a comic, kind of involving himself in his, in his own in his own cartoon is a very interesting.
There's a corner there. There's usually I don't know if it's a representative of Mwananchi. There's usually at the corner saying even messengers. So maybe the government. I will take this as the government's reaction to journalists covering the protests last week.
Indeed.
But that's just me. If you're out there and you have better info, please do tell us. The Daily Nation?
The Daily Nation also has a similar piece. So there are two gentlemen sitting on trees, on a branch on trees, and then both of them have saws that have been almost cutting through the branches they're sitting on. One of them is the Raila Odinga in his what time? Regalia.
Raul Regalia.
And then, of course, Ruto in his UDA colors there. And they're both saying, let sense prevail. So I think everyone welcoming.
But still hiding cards.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
But it's a very, I think it's referencing the Ruto Raila deal.
So interesting piece.
Yeah, very, very two different kind of divergent cartoon editorials there. But
while we're still on art, Jesse, let me get your feedback on this before maybe you can point us out to the next story. There is a conversation here on the smart business of the Daily Nation, which is the pull-out section that you get right next to the Healthy Nation section. And they're speaking about ChatGPT and AI, right? So we are seeing an increased proliferation of AI tools, from image generation to text generation. It's becoming really difficult to find the smart business. Found it.
Okay.
That is Tech Smart Business, page 3, copyright dilemma as AI rises in Kenya. The arrival of ChatGPT and Bard. Bard is the Google equivalent of ChatGPT. It raises questions about protection or owning work generated without any human reasoning or input. So essentially what these AI tools are doing, or this chatbot technology based off AI, is to learn what we've been doing online. Taking a look at memes, taking a look at your art. You as an artist, your work out there. So if I wanted to get an image in the style of Jesse Kimotho, at that time, it could be able to create something new, but in your style. So there's a conversation on copyright dilemma, and work generated by AI will not enjoy copyright protection. So who is to protect or how exactly should we handle the issues of copyright when it comes to such technologies? You're an artist and you have your work out there. How would you, or how does this make you feel? Because this is a real and current situation.
Sure. So I think it's a very nice hot take. AI is on everyone's lips these days, and I think it's important to note, there are very, at least as we understand the AI right now, there are fundamental kind of assumptions that we have. The first is we know that ChatGPT right now is being provided for free, and the assumption that we're running is that it becomes the work of, I think the Vincent Odundo said, the prompt engineer. It becomes then the legal property of the prompt engineer.
Okay.
I would also argue and say I don't think that AI is encumbers or prevents copyright from taking effect as it should. I would actually argue that it provides an avenue for even more unique generations. Because the computer can permutate or can come up with even more or unique things and generations, whether it's text or images. Very recently in Kenya, we've had, I think the most recent copyright kind of hot take that I've had was when the musician Nonini won a lawsuit.
Yes.
For 1 million shillings against Cyanix and the promoter Brian Mutinda, because they used his music without his permission. But you can imagine if they had instead gone to AI and envision the kind of music they want. Say they want a nice upbeat gengeton sound. Maybe they would have had, there would not have been the legal issues they're having now. Yeah. So usually, in fact, when it comes to copyright, it is unique ownership and thought that has been stolen from another person that usually is the kind of stuff that we see. Someone taking an image that you've made and trying to make money off of it. But even now, the skill flow now being reduced, it makes it easier. You don't even have to. It is easier to generate than to get from someone whose work and therefore they've already put in.
A very tough question I'm going to pose to you maybe as a closing, to hear your closing remark on that specific thought. How these AI tools are created is that they are trained on data, right? They are fed thousands of images, hundreds of thousands of texts or images and all of that. It doesn't make you feel any type of way as an artist. Maybe your work has been used, as you've said there, Nonini asking, why are you using my music in your promotion? Here is OpenAI, which is sourcing my tweets, which is sourcing your art, and having it train a technology. Doesn't raise should that raise concern? Because creatives are saddened by the fact that their work is being used without them being given credit as well in the training process.
I don't think so. And I can use an actual real life example to kind of talk about this. There's a startup called Summer Sauce, or formerly Summer Sauce. I think now it's known as Summer. I think with the proper use of AI, even from the training. So what Summer does is they train data and they use normal people, actually people with a very low skill flow who don't particularly know how to use technology well, and they train them on how to specifically train data. And what they have done is they've allowed someone who might have maybe had done something else, a rather kind of low entry job. So instead of going to Mjengo, or instead of going somewhere, you can go sit in front of a computer at Summer Source, train data for Google, for another larger company, and earn money. And one thing that tech does really well is it helps you earn more. Kind of for less, by opening you up to this new income stream. So, you might see that, maybe they're earning more than they would have if they had gone out And right from there, and that's at the very bottom of the pyramid. That's the kind of behind the scenes. So check them out, Summer Source. And so what am I trying to say? AI can provide jobs at almost all levels. So if you're an academic writer, you can use ChatGPT to make your
process faster.
Exactly. So it's more about kind of finding the sweet spot. So they say the ones who survive at the end of the day are the ones who learn how to adapt. So it's a very interesting technology. Very excited to see what it can do for us as Kenyans.
All right, you can check that out, the Smart Tech business section, Tech Smart business section of the Daily Nation, and then you can get to read a piece there written by Caroline Wanjugu. Anything else, Jesse, you think I might be leaving out?
Yeah, you can take a look at the sports section in
sure.
In the daily, this is the Standard again. Very good stuff from the Standard today.
But a lot of things happened over the weekend.
Coaches have been fired from the Premier League, from certain Premier League teams. Chelsea have lost their coach. Tottenham, we lost our coach around last week. We also lost our managing director.
Manchester United lost their game. Everyone's losing something this period.
And of course, there's some local games that you can kind of follow on the school. These are actually school games, so very tragic that even the Pwani University branch, Babas that Hakash, was actually heading to Eldoret for the university student games. So I think this is the secondary school games, however. That are being played are in effect. So feel free to follow them up. I used to play handball in high school. I was a very good left winger. I'm left-handed, so they would never see.
They never see you coming.
Yes. So
what happened to that? What happened to that dream?
I decided to become a newspaper review at KUTV instead.
Yeah, at least they see you coming here on the show. But thank you very much. I don't know if there's another interesting story that you might left out, but for the viewers, if you have a headline out there, maybe just a little bit on the business daily as we wrap up, Jesse.
Sure.
Mostly the top business story today is highlighting on there are several appointments that are being revoked by President William Ruto, and the ones that he is instituting. We already saw that happening over at Safaricom, where the board chairperson of that telecommunication firm, John Ngumi, was replaced by lawyer Adil Kawaja. And we are seeing that also in KCB Group, where President William Ruto is sort of putting in his own people and revoking those appointments that were made by Uhuru Kenyatta. I don't think I can fault this one. I mean, new ship, new captain, let him choose his team.
Yes. And of course, I think the important thing is these are technocrats who are already experienced at what they do. I think even with the changes made, it's nothing too alarming happening. So I think we're just waiting for the dust to settle down on these new political appointments. Also for the CSs, I think they recently began their work, and I must say that the government is promising also a lot with these new appointments. With the CSs, they're saying that they expect almost 24-hour response time from the specific ministries compared to like 3 days that it was taking before, and sometimes it wouldn't even happen. So we're hoping to see laws being ratified faster, policies being ratified faster, better communication between the executive and the legislature, and possibly the promise of a more efficient government.
Right. Also, so you're saying that last mile delivery will be possible with these appointments if they actually do what they're been set out to do.
Yes.
Okay. Also, you want to point out something?
And something else to note that I've seen in both the Business Daily and the Standard, I think, is the middle class keeping their cars at home, and the idea of people using less power and diverging from the mainstream. The people, households literally cutting fuel and power. So there's a whole excerpt on that on the Standard, and that's actually the pull-out section focuses on that. So that's
the financial standard.
Households and farms cutting power consumption even as the cost of living rises.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are measures being taken by people to survive the current situation. So you can take a look at that. On the Business Daily, they're saying fuel consumption in Kenya, excluding the pandemic year, has fallen for the first time since 2017, pointing out to that softening economy amid the record high prices and reduced vehicle sales by formal dealers. Maybe to follow that up with the statistics here of jobless Kenyans that I already talked about in the show. 2.97 million, that is as of December last year, is the number of Kenyans without jobs, and this number keeps on going up as the economy is shedding more jobs after the general elections of last year. I don't know, Jesse, do you have something positive to say to this regard?
I think just some key statistics that we must know. That's a 2.7% increase. And then another thing worth noting that the Business Daily points out is that a huge number of these people are youth under the age of 29.
Right.
Actually, 1.5 million
Of them.
of this. So maybe it ties in very well with what our first speaker said. It was kind of, the idea of trying to, to find, career placement and career advancement even as a young, as a youth and as a young man is very important to consider in this kind of economy. So, if I was a viewer, I would recap back to the first part of Biashara Tuesday today
And see how to handle this situation.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if you missed that conversation we had with Samuel Ouma earlier on the economic crisis, the youth unemployment, he had some solutions to offer. It will be there on YouTube. But another positive note, maybe the Central Bank of Kenya, the outgoing, I think is going to be out of office by June, finishing his term as the governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Patrick Njoroge said that he expects the country's economy to grow by 5.8% in 2023. So maybe, hopefully, given that the political tension is also dying down, we could see last mile delivery and maybe hope for the economy. Jessica Motho, thank you very much for creating time for me this morning. I don't know if there's a last thing that you want to say before I get you to read this quote at the back of the Business Daily.
It's my pleasure to be here. Nothing today. Just glad to be here. I hope to grace your screens again.
For sure, man.
Soon, yeah.
Thank you very much for creating time. The last word from Dr. Richard Norris. He's a life coach. What does he have to say?
He says, those who follow you are exactly why you have led them.
Let's get that again.
Those who follow you are exactly where you have led them.
Think about it.
Think about it.
The Standard, the Business Daily, and the Daily Nation. The newspaper review with Jessica Motho. Thank you very much for tuning in. Going for a short break, coming back to read your feedback, your reactions to what our opinions plus facts plus statistics have to say, and then we'll continue with hashtag Biashara Tuesday. Don't go too far.